What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode on Code with Annie. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the top 10 methods that are offered by the collections class in Java. Now, before you get any confusion, the collections class is not the same as the collections interface. In fact, the collections class is a class of its own which supports certain operations on all of these collections: set, list, and map. Okay, now this is a very special class that is able to provide certain specific methods that will make your life a lot more simpler, and we'll see how it does so in this video. So without further ado, let's get started. The top 10 methods are starting with sort. So as you know, sort is basically the method that is used to sort a list, a set, or any data structure. So let's try to implement the sort on our list. Let's create an array list of integers. Okay, I'm just going to go a little more quick on this video because there are 10 things to cover and we have only 10 minutes left. So let's start. A list is equal to new array list. Okay, and I'm going to say a list dot add. Let's add some elements to the list, and let's quickly add 5 elements to it. Okay, 10, 20, 5, 98, and 76. Okay, now I'm going to say collections dot sort list, and let's try to print out the list. Okay, let's quickly run this, and you should see that the list is sorted by default in the ascending order. As you can see, 5, 10, 20, 76, and 98. Okay, now if you want to have a custom sorting, you can pass in a comparator to it, just like I showed you in the priority queue video. So you can say new comparator, and it will be able to perform any custom comparison that you want and sort your list based on that. So by default, it always retains the ascending order of sorting. Now let's try to see the other method, which is called reverse, which is also quite useful. Let's say collections.reverse, and I pass the list to it. Now this is a sorted list, and when reversed, it should print out 98, 76, 20, 10, and 5. Let's try to see what it prints, and let me put the print line and run this again. As you can see, and it's successful, and you can see 98, 76, 20, 10, 5, right? It has reversed the list. Let's apply empty list, empty set, and empty map. So what are these three methods? So empty list basically creates an immutable list in Java. So what is immutable? Immutable means unmodifiable. So once created, you cannot add or remove anything to the list. So let's try to create an empty list of integers. Okay, I'm going to say empty list is equal to collections dot empty list. Okay, the beauty is if I say empty list dot add an element to it, it will automatically throw the unsupported operations exception, because this list that is created through this collections method empty list will always remain empty, and you cannot add or remove any element from this list, and it will throw this unsupported operation exception. Likewise, you also have empty set and empty map, which will create the corresponding collections which are completely empty, and you cannot perform any other operations on those except to use them as just an empty list or empty set or empty map. So there might be requirements in your code which will use this. So when you find this requirement, feel free to use these methods. Then you have, on the same tone, something called as unmodifiable collections. So the same thing. Let's try to do that to another list. Let's keep the same thing, but instead of empty list, I'm going to say unmod list. I'm going to say collections dot unmodifiable list. In fact, you can call unmodifiable collections, and you can apply it on any collections basically. So you can see so many unmodifiable types are present, right? So I'm going to use the unmodifiable list here because we have an array list here. I'm going to pass this list to it, and let's see what happens now. So to the unmod list, if I try to add another element, okay, it should throw an exception that you just saw, the unsupported operation exception. It's running it, and here we go, we got the exception again, and it says it's unsupported operation because once you have a list with certain elements in it, and if you try to create an unmodifiable list from it, which is this one, which is the collection that is returned by this method, the same list will always have only these 5 elements. You cannot remove anything from it, you cannot add anything from it. If I try to do the same thing with the remove operation, okay, and I pass in something that's already there, like 10 is in this list, it will again throw unmodifiable exception. You cannot simply change anything in the list, and you should always keep it static. Static in the sense the values in it will always remain the same, and nothing can be added or removed from it. This is a very powerful and useful feature, so keep this in mind, and it can be applied to almost all the collections you have using this special collections class. Then you have disjoint, and let's see how disjoint works. So let's say I have another list. Okay, I'm just gonna change this to another list, and I'm gonna say new array list. Okay, I'm gonna say another list dot, instead of this, let's try to retain some of the elements from here in another list, and okay, and I'm gonna add so when I'm gonna try execute this one, right, collections dot another dot disjoint, and I'm gonna say a list comma another list. What it will return is, let's see what it returns. Let's print out and then I'll tell you what it does. Let's try to run this. It should be a boolean, either true or false. Now let's see what this returns. It has returned false, which means even if you have one common element between the two collections, in this case we have 4 common elements, then it returns false. If you have no common elements, let's say I have 34, 21, 19 and 98, for example. 98 is already there, so 99. Now we have nothing in common, right? Now if I try to run this, let's see what it returns. It returns true, which means if there are no common elements between the lists that you're trying to perform the disjoint operation, it will return true. If there's even one common element, it will return false. Quite useful method, keep this in mind. Then you have min and max, which basically are self-explanatory. So I can say system.out.println collections.min, and I pass collections.min, and I pass a list to it. It will return the minimum element in the list, and if I say collections.max, it's going to return the maximum element in the list. Quickly run this, and we'll see the minimum and maximum values. So the minimum is 5 and the maximum is 98, right? 5 is the minimum and 98 is the maximum here. Likewise, you also have fill, swap, and frequency and copy. So what fill will do is, let's say you have this another list right now. Let's try to operate collections.fill. Okay, it returns nothing, so you have to print it out another line. Unlike these, which return a boolean, this returns void. So what I'm going to do is collections.fill. I'm going to pass the first argument as another list, comma, I'm going to say 8. Now what it will do is every element of this list gets replaced by 8. Now if I try to print out another list, let's see what happens. As you can see, so it will quickly swap all the elements of the list with one common element that you pass here. Okay, this might be useful in cases where you want to research something in a list, and when you come across use cases like that, you can use the fill operation to set everything to one common value. Okay, then you have swap, frequency, and copy. So let's take a look at swap. Swap is relatively very simple. Now I have another list printed out here, right? So let's try to swap 2 elements. So I'm going to swap the first and second position in this list. Okay, let's say collections.swap. This also returns void, which means you have to print out the list again on a different line. I'm going to say a list comma 0 comma 1, which means it's going to swap the elements at position 0 and 1 in this list. Okay, if I try to print out this list, now it should print out the swapped list. Let's see what happens. As you can see, 98 and 76 got swapped as 76 and 98. Quite a useful method, and it will be useful if you know the index which you want to swap. Okay, then frequency and copy are very similar. Now let's say I apply the collections.frequency, okay, which returns an integer, so I can print out directly the value of collections.frequency. It basically returns the number of times a particular element is there in a list. So I'm going to say another list comma 8, and it will return 4 because another list has 4 8s, correct? So let's try to print this out and see what it returns. Basically calculates the number of times a particular element occurs in a list. See? And then last but not the least, copy, which is a quite unique one. So what it will do is, we have 4 elements in the original, we have 5 elements in the original list, correct? So copy accepts 2 lists, so 2 collections basically, one collection which is called a source and one collection called as a destination. So let's say I want to copy all the contents of this list into this one. So what will happen now is, let's go ahead and probably for the sake of this one, I'm gonna remove the fill method. Where did I do the fill? So I'm gonna remove this, Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll do the last one, collections dot copy. Okay, this also returns void. So I'm gonna copy. So it accepts two parameters, right? One is the destination to which you want to copy. I'm gonna copy into a list, and where I'm gonna copy from is the another list. So I'm gonna copy the contents of another list onto this list. What it will do is, it has 4 elements, right? 34, 21, 19 and 99. It will take and it will replace the first 4 elements here with these 4 elements, and the last one, 76, will remain as it is in the new list. Let's try to validate that. Let's try to print out list. Let's run this, and here we go. As you can see, 34, 21, 19 and 99 are there, correct? The last element will not be 76 here, because we have already done a reverse order. So, and we already did a swap as well. So it has replaced 76, 98, 20 and 10 from the original list, that is a list, with the value of 34, 21, 19 and 99, which is from another list. But it lets the last value be the same because the source list is smaller than the destination list, and this is a requirement for the copy method. The copy method has to have the source list as smaller than the destination list. Okay, the source has to be smaller than destination. There is a check for that. If it is greater, it is going to throw an index out of one exception, because it cannot copy all of the list or accommodate all of it or superimpose this particular source list on the destination list. So that's it for this video. If it stretched beyond 10 minutes, I apologize for that, but I wanted to tell all these 10 important methods. Feel free to go through this slowly at your own pace. Hit the like button if you like this video. Subscribe to CodeWithAni if you haven't already. And I'll catch you guys quickly on the next video. Coming soon. Bye bye guys.